Hi, I'm Sophia and Louisa Lee. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of So Zoom In. I am very excited to be bringing a very special guest, Rudy Ramos. You may recognize him from Yellowstone, but he is also an incredible actor and a wonderful person. So thank you so much for joining us. Please hit like and subscribe. Enjoy the show. Nice to see you again. And since you've been on Yellowstone, I watch you all the time. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm still with them. They don't use me as much as they did, but that's what happens when you have a mega hit.
Right.
Storylines changes. People come in and out for a season. That just doesn't leave a whole lot to go around for everybody else. So
Right. And all the new characters. But, I think it's so funny because when I was talking to a few friends of mine who love the show and I said I was going to be talking with you, they knew who you were right away. Like, oh, that's Monica's dad. And they were all excited. So
yeah, that's Monica's grandfather.
Oh, grandpa.
Yeah. I'm like her dad because I raised her.
Right.
We
Right.
never, well, Kelsey and I have decided what happened to the parents, but we didn't get it from Taylor.
Well, what is your backstory? Because you have to have a backstory.
Well, we feel like they're in prison. One's in prison and one's dead.
Oh, okay.
Drugs on the reservation.
So it's so interesting. Okay, so here you did this one-man show, Geronimo, Life on the Reservation, and you end up doing a TV series where you're on the reservation.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do the one-man show, which is absolutely amazing, by the way. You are brilliant.
Well, I grew up in Lawton, Oklahoma. Lawton is connected to Fort Sill. Fort Sill is where Geronimo spent the last 15 years of his life. So as a little boy, he was, I noticed him. He was my hero. When we played Cowboys and Indians, I always had to be Geronimo.
Right.
Since I was 5 years old. I always wanted to do a one-man show. Well, not always, but probably for the last, I think sometime in the 80s, there's a cowboy singer named Michael Martin Murphy. He had a couple of big hits, and then he said, I don't want to do this. And he was really a handsome young guy, looked like Robert Redford. And he just didn't want to do the mainstream thing. He wanted to do cowboy songs. And there's a big difference in country and cowboy songs. Cowboy songs, they tell stories, and he's a storyteller. So Michael was a friend of mine, and he was doing a concert in Ventura over off the 101. There used to be like a Holiday Inn or something. It's real tall. So he did a concert there. And after the concert, we went up to his room and we were just hanging out and we were talking about he wrote a song called Geronimo's Cadillac. And then I started telling him about my feelings about Geronimo, where I was raised. And all of a sudden he just stopped and he said, you should write a one-man show about Geronimo and you should play him. I said, no, I'm not a writer. He said, well, you will be. If you got a story to tell, it'll come out. Well, 30 years went by and it never, I'm not a writer. I can write my feelings, but I don't have the skills or the training to be a writer, just the basic things like have a beginning, a middle, and an end, that kind of thing. Just by accident and Facebook, my cousin and I were talking, and she writes books. And I haven't seen her since I was a little boy. And we started talking about Geronimo, and she said, Geronimo, I mentioned him in all of my books because we used to go to the Indian powwows over in Anadarko, Oklahoma. After talking to her about it and not trusting people to write, the truth, she said, well, I'd like a shot at it. Be my guest. And about 10 months later, maybe a year later, she sent me this script. And I could see the story that I wanted to tell. It was there. It was too long for a one-man show. And there was an issue about it was also a fantasy. Part of it was fantasy, and that would never work for the story I wanted to tell. So I just explained that to her. Would you mind if I edited it? She's from Oklahoma. She's got this accent. She said, honey, I wrote it for you. You do anything you want. And I said, okay. So about the next year, I started editing it little by little, and I threw out some really good stuff, but it didn't go with the show. if you write books, I guess you can go off point and then come back 4 pages later. And you don't lose your audience. In a one-man show, you would lose your audience. So I found the story I wanted to tell, and then little by little, I started adding little things to it that I found. She gave me just a really good structure to find other things, like on the computer, and I started finding things. I find, oh well, I write it down, and this goes in the show, but I don't know where. And then pretty soon I'd find it. That's how that all happened, And I also told her, don't ever throw away the first copy, because it's going to make a great book. When I'm done with all this, it's going to make a great book, and you write it just. And she did. She's writing it now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And I think that her fans will really take to it, because it is a fantasy. What the natives will feel about it, I don't know. And I told her that too. It could be offensive, because it is a fantasy where Geronimo has a computer, mm-hmm. and he's typing, and it's kind of the same story, but he's just telling it through the computer. That's how that happened. And then I got my buddy Steve Railsback to come in and direct it. Brian Rasmussen, I guess he heard about it because I had never met him, and I had only been doing it 1 year. And Brian contacted me and wanted me to come be in the Solofest. I said, oh, I don't know what that is. What is it? And he told me about it. He explained it to me. You know what it is.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'd like to do a show here. And he said, well, I'd like for you to do 6 shows. Probably that wasn't about me or Geronimo. I think that, he knew who Steve Railsback is. Steve Railsback played Charles Manson in Helter Skelter.
Oh, okay.
He scared the world over 4 hours and two nights. He was wonderful as Charles Manson. Charles Manson was never that interesting as Stephen played.
Now you were in that movie, so that's how you met.
I was. Yeah, I was one of them.
Wow.
I had one of the lead parts. I played Danny DiCarlo. Danny DiCarlo was a biker who lived on the ranch with Charlie, but he wasn't a Charlie follower. He was following the girls, and Charlie liked him because he was a biker, and he was just kind of like protection. Charlie wasn't very big. Danny was the first one to talk to Vincent Bugliosi about life on the ranch with Charlie after he had been arrested. There was 2 parts. It was 4 hours. He was the first one to talk to Bugliosi and told him this and that. And he gave a lot of information, and he had to, because the police found him working on his motorcycle, and he had a warrant out for his arrest. So they took me to jail, and then I could talk to Bugliosi, and they let me go, or just go to jail. I've already been convicted, so that was the deal with Danny.
How interesting to have that kind of role. I mean, I know we're jumping over to the movie, but when you're playing an actual figure like that, like Geronimo, what kind of research do you do, or how do you?
For Danny, it was all there. There's the ranch where all the people were staying. There was a guy named Shorty Shea who was the manager of the ranch, and he didn't like him there. To him, there was a bunch of hippies following this older hippie, and he wanted them off, and they wouldn't go. So he tried different ways to get them out, and then one day he disappeared. And later on, it found out that he was buried in the grave there in 13 different pieces on the ranch. They chopped him up. And after right before Helter Skelter filmed, and after the trial, Danny DiCarlo was found all chopped up, talking.
Wow.
So my mother really had an issue with she was getting threats because I was playing Danny DiCarlo.
Threats?
She's a sweet lady in Oklahoma, wouldn't hurt a fly, and she was getting death threats. So.
Just from the general public, or from who?
Yeah, from the general public. Yeah, that happens.
Wow, as an actor, that's pretty.
Oh yeah. And at one point, I remember we were at the Paramount Ranch filming, and as supposed to be the ranch. And I came out of my dressing room, and I saw up on the hillside there was like police officers up there with weapons. And I immediately went back in my dressing room, and I was yelling for Stevens, come over here. He said, you come over here. So I went over, and I said, what's going on with these guys up there? And he said, we've had a bomb threat. He said, bomb threat? I said, yeah, just for making the movie. It was just people, they hated him, Charles Manson. You hated him or you loved him at that point. And we did that in 1975. So it was pretty scary, to tell you the truth.
Wow. So they did not find a bomb, or what happened?
Well, no, they didn't find the bomb. It was just a threat. It was a threat, but when somebody threatens to blow up your set, you take it serious. We had police on the set anyway. So they went up in the hills and they were looking for anything that moved.
Wow.
It's
pretty scary.
It was scary. It was a great experience. So I met a lot of wonderful actors in that show, and I loved what Railsback did with Manson. God, he was great. He did this one scene that was just like an acting clinic. Mm-hmm. He was on the witness stand, and all of a sudden he went off and he went on a rant, but that was scripted, and it was just beautiful. He was so relaxed, and he was so angry and telling why he was the way he was and the life he's lived, and he'd been in jail since he was 14 years old. But his body was like, that's what you're taught. That's what I've been taught. That's what he was taught. You gotta relax before you can get it out. Right. He was everything. I was just, it's my buddy, but I'm listening to what he's saying, but I knew the story, but I was watching him work, and it was just like a real acting clinic.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what do you love most about acting?
Well, I love the creative part. I love rehearsing, discovering things, and doing things I don't think I can do, and I end up doing them.
So I know when you're live on stage, the first performance is always so different than your last performance. So going back to Geronimo, how long did you perform that show?
6 years. 6 years. I started in 2014, and I did up until through the COVID. I think I canceled all my stuff for 2020. It wasn't safe to go out. COVID was just blowing up, and going a year without doing it is kind of like starting all over again. And I had things booked for 2021, and COVID was still happening, so I canceled everything. But in 2020, Brian Rasmussen called me, and he wanted me to close the festival, and I said no a couple of times. And then he called me one more time. It was getting near the end, and he said, "I'd really like for you to close the festival, the solo festival, for people that don't know what we're talking about." And I was just a little leery, that there was, backstage there, different people there day in, day out. And then I just kind of like slap myself and snap out of it. I know Brian. I trust him. He keeps everything clean. He's not going to let anybody get hurt. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And he said, okay, well, there's not going to be an audience, but we're going to live stream it all over the country.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I don't know about that, because I feed off of my audience. Right. I really feed off of my audience. I get right in their faces if I can. And I just tell my story. Sometimes, well, I never felt like I lost anybody in any performance at this Geronimo show. And I went, well, okay. So I went over the day that I did it, and we just kind of went through the tech thing for about 3 hours, and then I rested for a little bit and jumped on there. And it was a little different coming out, because I pace back and forth when I first come out, because I'm coming out of a meeting with Lieutenant Gatewood about laying down my arms and being sent to Florida to be on the reservation and to have freedom for the rest of my life, as opposed to continue fighting. So I was thinking about that, and I was walking back and forth, and that was Steve Railsback. That was not my idea. That was his idea. And I was, no. I'm going to lose him. I can't do that. And he said, yeah, you can. I said, no, I can't. I'm not that interesting. gonna lose him, I'll tell you. And he said, no, you won't. So I thought, okay. So I did it. First time I did it was the first show I did it, when I actually paced back and forth. And then somebody always makes a noise in the audience, and you just turn. There they were. I was thinking a lot of stuff there. Still didn't say anything for a long time, maybe 5 minutes. They were just getting right. I mean, they were like, and then I didn't lose them, never lost them. That wasn't my idea, that was his idea. And the ending, the last scene, when I come out and I say, hello, real big, that came the very first performance. We were going up on stage, and I thought he tripped on the top step. And Kathy, my wife, said, he didn't trip. He said, this is what you're going to do for this last, when you come out, you just say, hello, my name is Geronimo, and I'm famous. Would you like to have my autograph? You know, that whole thing, it was only about 5 minutes long, but that was a great start. And then you see him not in, you know, native clothes, not in Apache clothes. You see him in a suit, an old baggy suit and everything, and see what he'd become. And that was kind of sad. But yet he knew how to play the game. Even as a captive, he played the game, and he didn't have his freedom. That's all he ever wanted. He wanted to go back to New Mexico and Arizona area, and just have his freedom, and never got it. And right after he died, they were released in 1909.
Well, what I loved about your performance was you show this incredible arc of this man who has so many stories to tell, and you touch on a few stories, but it really does draw you in, and it's just so beautiful and almost tragic to see how his incredible life has just like whittled down to become everything that they were never for, you know, pretty much were against, he becomes. And that actually kind of made me cry watching it.
You got the story, and that's the story I wanted to tell. You know, the American Army and the American government wanted to make an example out of him. Look at this. We tamed him. You know, he's now like a white person. No, he never was. He just played the game. Wow. He played the game. They've invited him to President Roosevelt's inauguration. And there was like 6 Indians riding on horses, and they all had on their headdresses, except Geronimo. Geronimo was never a chief. He was a leader, but he was never a chief. He was the shaman of the tribe. He was the elder, but he was never a chief. Just people followed him when he decided to start fighting. He always had a very small band of people. And they were like gypsies. They would move from town to town, depending on the weather. Then when in the show, you know, there's a part where he says in 1856, when he was a young man, Mexican troops raided the camp while the men were out trading, and they killed everybody. And there was just old people, women, and children. They killed his mother. They killed his wife. I still get angry talking about that. And they killed his 3 children. Oh. Now, when they start coming in and taking your land and the lives of your loved ones, that would piss anybody off. So that's why he fought. And I wanted people to know that, because as a little boy, he was always the enemy. And I never looked at him as an enemy. I looked at him as a hero. And then as I got older, because in Oklahoma, we had Oklahoma history, but they never talked about the Indians. They never talked about Geronimo. And Sophia, I just wanted to give him a voice that he never had and that I thought he deserved. And I think I did it. I really do. I mean, it's a show that I could have done for the rest of my life, because the older I get, he died at 80. I'm not 80 yet. I could keep doing it, but I guess it was time to go. COVID came. I had this costume that Luster Bayless from American Costume over in North Hollywood. He saw me do a reading of the first scene in clothes for an event that I was at, and they asked me to do it. So after I did the reading of that first scene, this guy came up, and that was Luster Bayless. I didn't know who he was, and he introduced himself, and he said, "So what are you doing about a costume?" And I said, "Oh, I haven't even thought that far ahead. I don't know." He said, "Well, you need to. I think you got something there." He said, "Why don't you go over to American Costume and see my daughter, and she runs it, and have her pull you a costume." So I did, and it was the same costume that Wes Studi wore in the movie Geronimo.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that. She just pulled it out, and pretty soon it's one of the guys that worked there said that was the one he wore. Interesting thing too, where my show begins, that's where the Geronimo movie ended, and I didn't know that because I'd never seen it. And a man that I worked for before, Walter Hill, directed it. So, and I happened to be watching TV one time, and I saw the last 10 minutes of it, and that ended. And that's when he had that meeting with Lieutenant Gatewood. That's the way that movie ended, and that's where mine began. I didn't know that. My cousin didn't know it when she wrote it. By the way, my cousin's name is Mraz Hooper, Janelle Mraz Hooper. She's a character. Boy, is she a character, but she wrote a beautiful script.
Yes, she did. And you performed it beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah. So is there any chance of you ever performing it again?
I would. I would, yeah, but I wouldn't. It would have to be. It would have to be not traveling, like I was doing. So I went from California to Mississippi, and from Texas to Utah, and all over the Southwest with this show. People just loved it. But I did all that myself. I had to do all of it. I remember once saying, somebody asked me, Brian Rasmussen, somebody said, "Well, who's your producer?" I was thinking, I don't have a producer.
You did it.
Well, it's your show. I guess you're the producer. And I thought, I guess I am. It's because I was doing everything. I raised the money from the Kickstarter thing and got the studios to be able to rehearse in over in Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard. Did all the bookings, had to do all that stuff of selling tickets. You got to register with this, and that. I'm not computer savvy at all. I could barely get on this Zoom thing here. If Kathy wasn't here, we'd be talking on the phone. But I just not, it's not my time. I know how to email. I know how to open them, and that's about it. So I think about it. I'm still not that far away from it. I think about it. I find myself doing lines, or I'll see something and all of a sudden it reminds me of something, and then I start doing that scene. I still get mad. Well, the thing I loved about doing Geronimo was because it really tapped into my acting skills, and that I had that rage, and I still kept it underneath, and it only would come out from time to time. And it was a great piece to act out, as an actor. It wasn't just going out there and saying lines. It's different every night because the audience is different every night. They react to different things, but yet I'm telling the same story. And sometimes I never got out of control. I never lost it. One time I got so angry, I was pacing, and I couldn't remember my next line. And because I had started the show pacing, I didn't lose anybody. They just stood there. I sat there and watched me, and I'm thinking, can't remember my next line. And I just kept pacing back and forth, and pretty soon I was smiling and kind of laughing at myself. And then it came to me, and I knew it would, but it was probably like 60 seconds, 90 seconds of silence. And I'm walking in, and I just went right where I left off. And I looked at them, and they were fine. They were still with me. So it was it's the best role I have ever had and will ever have. And when I got an audition for Yellowstone, I was like 3 years into it, maybe 4, and I figured that when I saw the material, the sides to go do this reading, I had never seen writing like that for a native. There was a lot of integrity to this man, and I saw that right away. And I figured this is a good role, I think. And I thought right away probably Wes Studi or Graham Greene would get it because they've both been nominated for Academy Awards. They're a little more well known than I am, although I've done a lot of work for 50 plus years too, but never had that big hit like Wes Studi with Geronimo and Graham Greene, Dances with Wolves. Something that people really identify. I did a TV series called The High Chaparral. That was my beginning in 1971, but that didn't make my name. It just happened to start on the world stage, which is interesting because I'm on the world stage again on my way out. But I figured one of those would probably get it, but I've got an audition, so I went and I worked on it. And I went to do it, and I was really sharp because of traveling with this show, and I was real confident, and I didn't have an attitude, but I just went in and did my reading. And on my way home, my agent called me and said they really like what you did. They would like to see you again next week. So next week comes, and I go, and there's a room full of people. And that's when I thought, this is an important role, because that's only, all those people, we call them the suits. They don't wear suits, but all the important people of this production, they were all in there. Wow. And I didn't know who anybody was. One guy, Mr. Linson, he was one of the executive producers. I knew him because I'd seen him. I knew who he was. And he looked like a biker. He's short and he's stocky. He's got tattoos all over, and he wears T-shirts. He was sitting right in front of everybody. And I recognized him. He was the executive producer of Sons of Anarchy, too. And I saw an interview with him, so that's how I knew he was. Mm-hmm. So I did, when I came back for that second reading, at the end, like after I said my last line, I heard somebody say, "Could you ask him to say that last line just a little softer?" But I didn't see who said it, but I heard it. And I said, "Yeah, I could do that." So went back, did it again. And so when I said that last line, I heard somebody say, "Yep, that's it." Nice. I didn't see who said it. Yeah. Okay. So I went out, I had to thank them for seeing me. And I went out to the office where this lady was watching the screen. And I said, "Are you watching the scenes my scene that I just did in there?" And she said, "Oh, no, I'm watching somebody's tape, that for casting." I said, "So somebody said something and I don't know who said it." She said, "Oh, that would be Taylor Sheridan. He's in Utah watching on Skype." So Taylor cast me himself. I know.
That's wonderful.
I know. And I love working with him. He's so supportive of me. I was only supposed to do the first 2 shows of season 1. That's the only contract I've ever signed, 1 and 2, and that was it. Never see him again. Now here we are in season 5, and I'm still with him.
Fantastic.
And the way I found out I was coming back after I found my second episode, Taylor came up and he said, "Oh, he's a hugger," and he hugged me and he said, "Wait till you see what I wrote for you in episode 6." And that's when I went, "Oh, okay." Like I knew I was coming back, but I didn't. Wow. If they had talked to my agent, I don't think they had even talked to my agent. He just told me when he writes something, he gets very excited. He can't wait to tell you. So like I saw him last year about this time. We've always had this joke about, when you kill me off, it's got to be a big thing, Taylor. I mean, like a real tearjerker. I'm not going to kill you off. So when I saw him, I was at the Western Heritage Awards last year about this time, and Taylor I was to present him with Best New Series, 1883. So I was doing an interview down in another room, and he came blasting through the door and didn't know we were in there. And he has so much energy, but it's a beautiful energy. It's not like bouncing off the walls energy. Mm-hmm. So then I finished that, and he went to another room, and then we were in this section where we were just, it's called the VIP section, and everybody was just having a cocktail, and he was on the phone. He wasn't having a cocktail, but he was on the phone talking to Wyatt McRae, Joel McRae's grandson, and then I came up. So he's got three things. I came up. Actually, I was looking for my wife, and she was with Taylor's wife over at the bar, but I didn't know that. So he said, "Oh, I just wrote a scene today, and you're in it." He said, "It's a real tearjerker." And they said, "Are you going to kill me off?" And I was serious. And he said, "I told you, I'm not going to kill you off. I don't kill off the old ones. I kill off the young ones." And in 1883, he killed off one of the stars. She was the young daughter. If you ever saw it, it's great. So we have this thing going on. When I'm always saying, you got to be, but you got to be big. You can't just like write me out. Got to be a big thing, tearjerker. So when he said tearjerker, I thought, uh-oh, he really is going to. He really has. So far, not yet.
So now you film out in Montana, right? You actually go up there.
Yes.
You live there while you're filming?
Sorry?
You actually live in Montana while you're filming this?
No, they bring me back and forth. They bring me back. You know, in season one, I stayed there for a long time. I did the first two episodes, and actually, for the first episode, they had to film some other stuff, and I came home after being there for a couple of weeks, and then I went back and finished that episode, and then I stayed there to do two. And then when I came back in 6, I stayed there all the way to the end, probably a couple of months, because they kept putting me in the next one, and the next one, and the next one. I went all the way to the end. I was supposed to do 2. I ended up doing 7. Supposed to do 1 season. It's been 5. So
well, I hope it keeps going. It's a wonderful series, and
it is. I hope it keeps going too. Right. And you know, I hope that I'm a part of it. But you never know. I mean, when you're on a big hit like this, I've been in hits before, but not this big. That's what happens. There's just new storylines and new actors, and they've added some new principal actors for the bunkhouse people, and they're really good. So, and they don't get as much as they should, but they're very happy. It's a happy set. I mean, everybody's been doing it for a long time. I'm probably the oldest one of the principal cast or the recurring cast. So we all know why we're there. So there's never any incidents with actors having an attitude or throwing a temper tantrum. We are there to bring those words to life, those wonderful words that he writes, to bring it to life and to serve him. That's why we're there, and that's what we do. So I love working with Taylor. I was doing a scene one day, and there was just something missing. Sophia, you're an actress, you know what I'm talking about. It was, and I just kind of felt like, well, I was thinking, and he saw it, and so he came over after we finished that. So he came over and said, "What are you thinking? What's wrong?" And I said, "You know, right here, there's something missing. I don't know what it is. If it's a movement or a word or something, just to bring it together just a little more." And he thought about it for a minute. He said, "Yeah, you're right. Why don't you say something?" I said, "Well, what do you want me to say?" He said, "Don't ask me. It wasn't my idea." And that's the kind of trust he has for his actors, and I will never forget that. That and the last show, the last scene that I was in season 1, when I finished, he came up to me and he gave me a hug and he did this, and he said, "I'm so proud of you." And I almost, well, I did kind of tear up. I've never had anybody say that to me. You know, I've had a lot of pats on the back, attaboy kind of stuff. Or, every once in a while you have somebody slap you, because I've played a lot of bad guys in films, and people have come up and actually slapped me. And
Like,
You deserve that the way you treated that girl. And well, I guess I did my job. So, they bought it. I paid for it. And somebody, I did it on a play too, at Santa Fe Repertory Theater one time. A lady came up and slapped me. Said the same thing because I was mean to my wife. And everybody would, oh my God, she slapped him. And I was just like, it's okay. It's okay. I'm used to it. So,
the abuse actors take. It's like, wow. Wow. Um, so say you were offered a movie, would you take it? Like, have offers come to you because of Yellowstone?
yeah, I'm going to do a movie probably in the next couple of months
Right.
um, in Kansas. In Kansas.
A Western or
Yeah, well, it's 1883, and it's called well, it's about a German couple that came to America in 1883 and what they went through, and it's a pretty good script. It's a low budget. It's I think just about $500,000. They've got some good people in it, and they called me. And they didn't know anything about it. So actually, the director called me, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll do it, but you need to check in with my agent. She could kind of like an end run
right.
kind of deal. She likes everything to go through her.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I don't mind. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to do that. And just recently, I had this clothing company. They make really beautiful clothes. Medicine Creek Outfitters contacted me about wearing some of their clothes at events that I go to. And then they had this link where I looked at their clothes, and there's really some nice Western style clothes, but colors I've never seen. And,
Nice.
so anyway, that again, they contacted me. I didn't. And, it's about Yellowstone. It's not about me.
Well, the shirt you're wearing, is that Madison Creek or?
No, this is it's a Pendleton shirt, and they're very nice. They're expensive, but I only got a couple, but they're nice. Anyway, these people are they contacted me, and they sent me this link that had a bunch of stuff on it. I said, pick out anything you want, and your wife too. And so we did. And that was pretty cool. I've never had that happen before. So yeah, little things like that. You get it. I went to the Lone Pine Film Festival for this past year. That's the first time I've ever been there. And there's a lot of legendary movies have been made there, and it's way out in the Mojave Desert. I got invited to that because of Yellowstone.
So people are recognizing you on the street and
yeah, airports. Yeah.
What is it like for you?
Well, I've had it happen before, when I was in the High Chaparral, but that was 50 years ago. So every once in a while, somebody would come up and say, "Didn't you used to be an actor?" I said, "Well, I still am, just older." So yeah, it's pretty cool. Nobody's ever been rude or anything like that. I kind of enjoy it now because a lot of young people watch Yellowstone, and it's funny because I went to an event this Saturday, just a couple of days ago, and I was going out this door, and this girl, she was really pretty, and she went, "Rudy," just picking and scared. I said, "What?" She said, "Rudy." I said, "What? Do I owe you money? I don't know." And she said, "Yellowstone, I love it. I love it. I love Felix Long." Oh, thank you. So, you get, and then other people are just kind of quiet about it, but the young ones get real excited about it. Others are just really happy for you. So.
Well, I'm really happy for you. I'm super excited for you because I know the audience is huge, and I love that your character, he's such a good guy, and he's so full of love, and he's so full of integrity, and I think the type of character we need more people of.
Yeah, and you know, thank you for saying that. A lot of people say that about Felix Long, and that he's the only sane one of the whole bunch.
No.
Um, and but he's the elder of the reservation. That's what you do.
Right.
That's why people look up to you. That's why they come to you. Even in the first episode of Yellowstone, Kevin came to me, Costner. He sat on the back of my pickup talking about how we're gonna do this thing because your cows are on my land and we ain't giving them back. So that probably means we're gonna have to fight. And I actually had a scene with my son-in-law, Kevin's son, in the show, telling him, you know,
Um,
that we're gonna have to fight, and maybe you should go home. And that was a really good scene because he said, "This is my home." He said, "You know what I mean?" And he said, "I blah blah blah." He said something, and I said, "It's not a. It's a funny thing to say on a reservation." So anyway, you know, until they find a cure for human nature, a man must stand with his people. And then I just reached out for some reason. I just touched his shoulders and I said, "You are not our people." And I could just see in the character Casey's face that that was like a real gut punch, but I didn't say it in a mean way. I said it soft. And then I walked away, and people come up to me all the time. They come up behind me and they put their hands on me, and I like, oh, this somebody got a gun, you know. I'll say, "You are not our people." And then with that, we all have a good laugh. And I think that's really cool when they say your lines. That's a good feeling. So I'm enjoying, you know, this job, this show, what it's brought to me, and they pay well.
Well, yeah, well, I should hope so.
They pay well, and I had never had streaming residuals, and they're really good.
Nice.
Yeah, I
I own
didn't.
every season, by the way. So
What?
I purchased every season, by the way. So
Well, thank you.
I've
Tell,
seen this one more
tell
than
your
once.
friends. Tell your friends to
Yeah.
buy it too. But yeah, and you know, there's so many now for actors. You know, you used to do a show. If it was a network show, then they'd have one rerun, and that would be it. Unless it, you know, when it finally started going to syndication or FX. But those things are not like a rerun of a network show that shows one time. That's a pretty good paycheck, but then you never they never show it again because they didn't go to syndication. They're in and out kind of series. But with Yellowstone, and every year they have like 4th of July marathon. They have Christmas marathon. They have several marathons where they play every season. So
It's definitely been worthy.
you get paid for that, for streaming. I didn't know that, and I don't know if it's because it's an AFTRA contract, because it is, or that's just streaming. I really don't know. I'm kind of ignorant to that. So I just
show.
I'm grateful for it and put it away. Been able to pay off my house just because of this one little show.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good deal. And I've met some, you know what, like you and I are talking right now, that probably, you know, Yellowstone has brought us together, and I'm grateful for it. I've been around really nice people.
Oh, that's great.
Haven't run into anybody that wasn't happy for me, you know, or thrilled to meet you. And it's not because I'm such a nice guy, it's because I'm in Yellowstone. I understand that. So it's a good job, and it came on the heels of my Geronimo. So for the last 10 years, 12 years, I've been busy and with two really wonderful roles. So
Well, and you've been in this business for what, 7 decades?
7 decades. Yeah, I got my SAG card, 1969.
Wow.
And I always tell when I'm talking to somebody, I always say that High Chaparral was my first job. Well, it wasn't really. I got my SAG card in 1969 doing one scene on Ironside. That's how I got my SAG card. But I'm sitting with my girlfriend and her grandmother, and we're watching this episode of Ironside. And all the credits go, and I'm watching, I'm looking for my name. Mm-hmm. And they left me out of the credits. I know, I had that same reaction as you. What?
They messed up.
Yeah. And, I called SAG. I told them what happened. They said, well, that happens sometimes. Really? So what do I do about it? There's nothing you can do. They just left you out of the credits. It was just a mistake. So I don't count that one.
Okay.
I don't count that one. So it just got me my SAG card, but I always say, because it was 6 months later is where I got Chaparral anyway. So it's kind of a little untruth.
Right.
Nothing compared to the lies told these days.
Oh.
But we won't go there. But yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. High Chaparral.
You've been a working actor though for a very long time.
Yeah. I have been very fortunate to work in some good stuff too, and work with good people. I had a little 4-year thing where I couldn't work because I had an accident. I got kicked in the face by a horse, and it shattered this whole orbital here. And I had 5 surgeries to rebuild that side of my face. This here is like a plastic implant for a cheekbone. So but that was my choice. The first couple of years, I couldn't work because, when you have a facial injury like that and they have to do a lot of surgeries, 3 in 1 year, your face is kind of swollen and it's a different color. And then I didn't want to work because this implant didn't, it was like a knot on a tree. It just stuck out. And that was error on the surgeon. He told me that it fit when it went in, but this was, they didn't know why that happened. And I didn't want him to go in, take it out and put another one in. He didn't want to do it either. But I did meet a guy, a few years later, and we were just talking, and he happened to be a plastic surgeon. And he kept looking at that. And finally, I said, why are you looking at that? And he just started touching it. And he said, I sure would like to work on that. And I had your reaction. I said, really? What would you do? And he said, I would cut you under here, and I have already taken fat from your body, cut you under here, pull this down, and then layer it to where it built up, and it would fit like that one.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you can do that? With my dumb self, I said, really? You got a card? I mean, that really interested me, and I let him do it. And I walked out of that office because it was like, I forget what you call it when you have surgery and then you leave that day. Once you wake up. And that day it looked better.
Oh, wow.
That day it looked better. And then I let it go for a while and I got used to it. And I called my agent one day long and I said, I'd like to go back to work, but I don't need to see me. See if what you think of my face. So I went over to his place and we walked in his office and he said, so what's wrong with your face? I said, that? He said, you look great. Let's go have lunch. We're putting you back to work. And the next week I got a job.
Fantastic.
So
I have to, how was it a horse kicked you in the face though? What happened?
I was walking my horse, but she was a baby. She was 13 months old. She was a big baby. And I was bending over, picking up some plastic that was going to go past us. So I bent over it and picked it up. I didn't want it to spook her.
Right.
So it did. When I picked it up, it made that crinkling noise. And she had stepped up. I stepped up. I just stepped up a couple of steps. And I picked it up. And she had stepped up too. And she kicked, horses can kick out just like they can kick back. Their back legs are just like our arms. You can go back with it, you can go forward with it, you can go sideways with it. And she kicked me a good one and then took off. And I'm laying, it didn't knock me out, but it knocked me down, and you heard this sound in your head. And then I saw a lot of blood on the sand because we were in an arena. And that's not good. So I put my t-shirt on, went to the barn, called somebody, and they came down. There was a young girl. She was first one down. And she said, "What happened? What happened?" I said, "Well, I got kicked." She said, "Let me see." So I had the t-shirt on, it's full of blood. I took it off, and she went, "Ah." Really?
Well, thank goodness your eye's okay that you didn't.
Yeah, my eye is okay. I didn't lose any teeth. There was no more brain damage than what was already there because I was a child of the 70s. So I did. I came out good. I got little angels all over my shoulders. There's no song I remember. Out of 9 lives, I've spent 7. How in the world do you get to heaven? Out of 9 lives, I've probably spent 7. I think I might have a couple more left. Never know though.
Right, you never know. But I'm so proud of you, Rudy. I mean,
Thank you, Sophia.
And you do incredible work, and you have such a wonderful presence about you. You're a kind, humble man. You're about the work. You are a true actor. And I love that. And I would like to see more actors aspire to be that.
Thank you. Yeah, I do love acting. I don't talk about it much because I don't know what I know. I just know how to do it. And I've helped a lot of actors. I've had offers to be a teacher, and I don't want to teach. I don't want to have a class. I'm not that smart. Like I said, I know how to do it. And I've worked with people, helped them get prepared for a reading, or people who've gotten a job. And I've been doing that for a long time, just helping them create their character. You don't tell them what to do, just tell them what to try. Let them find it. And I've directed a couple of plays too. And directing a play, you can mess it up, or you can hire the right people and let them find their truth, and then put it all together. So I like that. I've done that before, and I felt like I cast this one show.
That's wonderful.
And I just loved working with these people. I try to get them to try things, but not telling them what to do, just letting them find their blocking, their inner whatever they were using, if they worked that way, something to make it real. Because none of them were professional. And I found I like that. But there's not anybody beating down my door to direct anything. So but the times I've done it, I really liked it. And I really love, when I got into acting, I didn't come to California to be an actor. I just came to California from Oklahoma because I saw nothing there for me. There wasn't anything there for me. It wasn't going to happen. So I just wanted to see what else was out there. And I accidentally got into it, working in a shoe store. And this lady asked me if I was an actor. And I said, no. She said, why not? And I said, well, I'm from Oklahoma. We don't think about things like that. She said, well, you have a real strong presence. If you ever want to, talk about it, here's my card. And it turned out she was the assistant to Jane Murray. Jane Murray was the casting director at MGM. So I didn't do anything about it for about 3 months. And a buddy of mine told me one day, oh man, he was a musician. He said, people would give their arm up to here just to walk through the gates of MGM studio. Don't be stupid, go out there. So I caught 2 buses over there because I was living in Hollywood on Franklin. And I had a meeting with Jane Murray, and she was real stern and kind of was giving me a lecture. And I thought, I caught 2 buses over here to get an ass chewing. How rude. But I didn't say anything.
Right.
I just listened because I'm a good listener. And she went on for about 20 minutes, and then she said, okay. Now, she wrote something down, and she gave me this piece of paper with the man's name on it and the number. She said, I want you to give this man a call. I'm going to call him. He'll know who you are. And you go meet with him. Well, he turned out to be my first and only mentor. His name was Sherman Marks. He was from the Actors Studio in New York, the director's unit. He was from New York, Jewish, genius, until I met Taylor Sheridan. The only true genius I ever met in my life was Sherman Marks, and now Taylor. And he was fascinated with me. We sat in the old Beverly Hills Playhouse and we just talked. And I was fascinated with him too. We were so different. And he invited me to come audit his workshop. He had a professional workshop, working actors. They had a scene study class. I didn't even know what an audit was. He had to tell me. So you come and watch. I said, well, I could do that. So I did. And he invited me back. And then I kept coming back. And I kept coming back. And I said, well, when am I going to get to work? And he said, you just watch. And he made me watch for like 6 months. And I see all these actors, and I'd see them on TV. They were all professional actors, and I'm from the street. I noticed that when he taught, nobody said a word. Everybody listened. I just wanted to do it. And the first time I got to work, I worked with a lady who was in the workshop. She had been on Broadway, and she was, much older. And there was a scene between a young guy and an older woman, and she taught me how to rehearse. I loved rehearsal. I loved working on it. So when I got to High Chaparral, I knew how to create a character. I didn't know what a mark was. I wasn't aware of the camera. I didn't know what lights were for, but I knew how to do that character.
So looking back, if you had a chance to do anything else, would you?
With what I know now? No. This was what the creator planned for me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I'm able to share it.
Mm.
This happened for a reason, and the way that it happened, and I've never doubted that. I just ride with it, just go with it.
That's beautiful. So I remember watching your show. You had mentioned that you might put Geronimo on YouTube or someplace online. Is that something that you plan on doing?
No, I was going to put it because Brian Rasmussen gave me a link to that final show, and I thought about putting it on YouTube, but people are fickle. They'll say, "Oh man, I can't wait to see it," and then they'll never see it. After a week later, they forget about it. Yeah. And I thought about that, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that. And I sat on that link for a while. Every once in a while, I've had it for a couple of years. Every once in a while, somebody would say, I'm sorry, I missed your show. And I said, well, I got this link. If you're really interested, give me your email and I'll send it to you for free. And that's what I do. And now when I go to these events, like their autograph signing events and stuff like that, if they buy something, a picture or a t-shirt, Geronimo t-shirt, if they want that link, just give me your email and print it like you're in the first grade, because none of this fancy stuff, I don't see that good anyway. Right. And they do, and then I send it to them and they love it. So I think that's what I'm supposed to be doing with this show, because Sophia, I'm still reaching people. I'm still telling his story. I'm still giving him a voice. That's all I ever wanted with this. I never made any money with it. I didn't go in the hole, but I didn't do it for money. Right. I did it from my heart. I wanted to give him that voice, and I'm still touching people. Now, YouTube, it would get lost. Right. It would get lost. I'm giving it to people who are interested. And then I always tell them now, if you like what you see, please feel free to share it with your friends.
Ah, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing with that.
I think you are wonderful, and I appreciate you so much, Rudy. And I know you have so many stories, and I'm already thinking, how can I get to you again? So
all you got to do is call. And thank you so much for having me on your show. And it was a pleasure talking to you. It really was.
Rudy. You are wonderful. Have a beautiful week. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, my dear. Bye-bye.